Hi, I'm Jason. I'm an educational psychologist in the UK, and I have a passion for all things that can support a young person's learning and behavioural development in the childhood. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about a topic that's really important for some learners, which is supporting personal organisation skills. We're going to talk about 6 specific strategies that can support them, and let's go. If you work in education, you've probably supported a young person who at some point has forgotten something, whether that be their PE kit, where they're meant to be sitting in a lesson, their homework. All of these things can become barriers, and it's not necessarily through their own personal interests, but through sheer liability that they've forgotten this, that they're forgetful. Their personal organisation requires some support. There are some really specific and really easily applied strategies that we can use in the classroom to help build that personal organisation skill from our learners. Today's video is going to talk about just 5 or 6 of those really specific approaches. So first of all, we're going to talk about approaches which are based within the environment, the learning context. Might be the classroom, the playroom, based on the young person's age that you may support. First of all, you need to consider some of the visual reminders that are being given to them about specific rhythms and patterns of the day. Have a think about your classroom setting and think, are there any timetables available? Are those presented in visual or written formats? And does this match the developmental level of the learner that I'm supporting? Let's say, for example, you are a class teacher in a primary 5 class. You have a written schedule on the side of the classroom, but your young person that you're supporting presents with the literacy levels of what might be more characteristic of a primary 2 or primary 3 classroom. That written timetable might be quite difficult for them to access. And in that case, you might diversify the timetable that's on the wall to be a little bit more visual in its approach, applying some board maker symbols or some widget symbols instead. Again, we can kind of further rehearse this and echo that within our environmental level approach by giving an individualized timetable. At the learner's specific desk, we might consider giving them that pictorial type timetable of what is the order of things happening within the school day right beside them so they can refer there more frequently. Secondly, to do with the environment, we might think about the predictability of the wider routines within our learning context. It can be very easy to say that there is a good rhythm followed within your class day of snack time is always at the same time, lunchtime, a daily mile, physical activity. All of these things are happening at regular times. But first of all, think about within that you're using some numeracy and literacy time. Are those regularly signposted who they'll be working with regards to teaching assistants, what other young people are in their specific groups, and how well is that shown to them? How do they know exactly who they'll be working with? Do they have the key information that's required in terms of what resources will be needed in those classes for them as well? Do they know where to find their jotters? Are things adequately labelled in their environment? Think about, again, a little bit further about how you might make the specific and explicit patterns of your classroom more available to the young person, that they know where they can find those if they feel that they're lacking and they don't have that personal organisation skill available just at the moment. And thirdly, the other peers within the classroom can be a really useful resource for building personal organisation skills for specific learners. The way that you might capitalise on this is by having a look at your seating arrangement. First of all, thinking about whether your learner is oriented in such a position they can see the individual timetables which are presented for them on their table, or the class level timetables, that they're very much in clear sight of yourself as the class teacher providing instruction and any instructions that you've written on the board. But secondly, that their peer group who's at the specific table are potentially those more able learners who have no difficulties with personal organisation. They're able to act as positive models. So if you think about any young people within your class and you think that there are some who are very reliable with their personal organisation skills and might be able to help your specific learner keep on track with these qualities, then consider putting them quite geographically close together within your classroom, maybe moving this around, particularly at the start of the session whenever new routines are being embedded and they're learning the rhythm of the new primary school day. Now, secondly, moving on to approaches that the adult can apply, tangible things that we can change about our own practice within the classroom that may support our specific learners. So, first of all, before a young person asks for you to repeat instructions, before you offering that information, you might consider first of all redirecting to where in the classroom they can find that information. So if they're wondering what class is coming up next or after a snack, maybe instead of you telling them explicitly what the answer is, you tell them where they can find the answer geographically in the classroom, redirecting them to their individualized timetable or to the class level timetable, or to ask a peer who can then tell them. It just further embeds those routines of a young person, kind of fostering that independence and understanding where they can find the information that they're looking for, as opposed to just being scaffolded by the adult that is most available to them. The second, now this is something that I recommend really, really consistently in my practice as an educational psychologist, is limiting language, reducing the level of explanation that we provide to a young person to just the bare bones and the key aspects that they require, to the point that they can rehearse that in their head after they've been given the instructions. In circumstances where you're given 2 or 3 stage instructions, where you're asking a young person to go and get their jotter, find a pencil from the front of the room, open it up at the next open page and write the date from the board. These are a lot of different steps whenever we break that down more thoroughly. So reducing our language to get your jotters, get a pencil, write the date is much, much more easily lent to rehearsal in the young person's mind. And that's something that we can really tangibly do, instead of saying, right, guys, it's time for literacy. If you could go and get your jotters from the left-hand side of the room, we're just going to be using the red jotters today, and then I'm going to write the date up on the board. I'd like you to open to the first blank page and to write the date in your book. You can see there's a lot more language in that instruction, so we're really, really keeping that very contained whenever we can. Next is a really, really fundamental one, but of course sometimes we need reminded of this, is that you can use the child's name to redirect them and anchor them whenever you're using times of instruction delivery at a class level. Now there will be times, of course, where you need to set off different aspects of your classroom for independent work, or a group level work where you're giving instructions to all 20, all 25 young people within your classes. And at that stage, you might consider just using the young person's name specifically, just to anchor their attention in what you're saying. If they are finding that they're a bit scattered at that time, you might say, okay, everybody, it's time for David. Are you listening? It's time for, and then you've just captured that, not necessarily in a very high fuss way, but you've been able to kind of anchor their knowledge in what you're saying. And the final thing to say is that a consistent approach with school can be a really important thing whenever we consider supporting personal organisation skills as adults. Whether that's kind of passing information through Seesaw or through a home to school diary of what you're using in the classroom to support a young person, that's something that can be so integral, because then where the same approaches are embedded at home, there is double the exposure to understanding where they can find their personal organisation skills, or double accountability, and that can really make the difference as we think about fostering a young person's independence moving forward. So to sum up, we talked about some approaches that can involve adapting the environment to support personal organisation skills, and also what adults can do to build these qualities in young people. I hope that's been helpful. If it has been, please leave a message down in the comments, or leave a like on the video, and let me know if there's any other videos that you'd like to see in the future. Thanks.